Okay, big weekend videos right now. I want to talk a little bit about two-way radios and bug-out bag, that kind of stuff. One of my videos that for some reason got really popular, and I just kind of meant it as a throw it out there type video, was one on the Baofeng UV5R. And I bought a couple of those in relation to a project I'm working on with some people, because it's a very capable radio, but and the pricing on those is amazing, because 10 years ago we would have to pay about $600–700 for a radio with those kinds of capabilities. The other thing that was going on about 10 years ago is FRS, GMRS radios. There was kind of an explosion in availability on those, and they're usually dirt cheap, simple radios that were going for anywhere from $10 to $50 each, although there were some Motorola models that were going for a few hundred. But right now, that tends to be flea market fodder. And so, we'll show the bug out bag here. I keep extras, especially on the vehicle bug out bag situation. I keep extras, and I kind of hunt the pawn shops, and, well, not so much at pawn shops, because they're not really the best deals on these things, but yard sales, garage sale, flea market, for these inexpensive, older model, usually they're around 10 years old, for these FRS, GMRS radios, especially FRS radios. GMRS will have a little bit more transmit power. There's a licensing procedure for the GMRS radio that pretty much everybody ignores, but there is one. So, but we're a little bit more concerned about emergency communication, day-to-day stuff. You probably don't need to transmit beyond the FRS power level anyway, and the FRS power level is better for battery preservation. So, generally speaking, these radios are going to run on AA or AAA batteries, and anywhere from 2 to 4 batteries on average. Pretty simple, straightforward stuff. A lot of them made by Motorola. This one was made to run on, looks like 3 AA's. These are from an outfit called Audiovox, pretty common for consumer grade radio equipment. If I'm not mistaken, these run on about 3 AA's right here. And I've not had a bad one in the batch when I've been going through, you know, what I've picked up at the flea market or yard sales for anywhere from $1 to $5 each. The only thing that occasionally you run into is one like this one where the batteries have been left in it for a while. It actually still worked, but it just needs to have some of the crap cleaned out of there. Why would somebody have these radios? I'll tell you right now, loners, okay? If you're doing a bug out convoy, or you've just got a situation, your church group, your model railroad club, whatever it is, you're at one place, you want a caravan or convoy to another location. A lot of times people, don't want to screw around with a cell phone. It's difficult to dial a cell phone while you're driving. With these radios, you pretty much, you press the talk button and you're on the net. Once you've got all the channels set up. So for survival purposes, when you buy these things, what I usually do is I just set them to a very simple channel setting. I don't screw around with the privacy codes or lockout codes or any of that kind of stuff. I go to a straight channel setting. This is unsecure comms. But what I'm finding is that the waves out there, the radio waves out there are not crowded. This is not like CB radio in the late 70s where everybody was out there and you couldn't find a clear channel. You'll notice that a lot of these radios, obviously they're different makes, they're different models. Generally speaking, all the channels are supposed to mean the same thing. Does it actually work that way? Not exactly. But you can get a master radio like the Garmin RINO, which also functions as a GPS, but it's an excellent radio, which is very good for, it has a scan feature, and it's very good for checking the frequencies and lockout codes on all the other radios. Because when this radio was made, Garmin and I believe Motorola got together to design and build this thing, and came out of Oregon, actually, from what I'm told. And they the radio functions on this, they're worthy of their own videos. But basically, it's got a scanning feature which allows this radio to be compatible with every other make and model on the market of the FRS and GMRS radios. It also has a group location feature that only works between the RINO radios. But as a master radio for a radio net that's made up of radios that might be different makes, models, brands, as long as they're FRS radios, they're going to be compatible and far, far easier to program than something like the Baofeng UV5R. You're not going to run into very many, if any, legal issues using these, and they're so cheap. You just keep an eye open for them, have a pile of them. I keep a few on the extra pockets of my one of my bug out bags here, and if I'm convoying with people, we're not going to depend on the cell phones, although we'll use cell phones. But I really want to toss two-way radios out there because there's a call feature on them. They don't drop calls very easily, and usually you can press a button and then it'll ring somebody, just like a cell phone. There's actually a little bit of data transfer that happens on that, and if you want to switch over to privacy codes, you pull over on the side of the road, quiet place, program the radios to a privacy code, and you'll have reasonably decent communication on a budget. And I would say it is far better than nothing. And in a power outage or maybe a martial law scenario or something like that, it is better than cell phones because cell phones can be centrally monitored and centrally turned off. These radios are so common, so dirt common. You develop your own code, your own language when you're talking on the radio. The more your group is together getting used to using these radios, the better you're going to be with them. And if somebody kind of drops along the way or they abuse the equipment, it's not a huge financial loss, okay? If you're handing out higher end radios, it is a financial loss. So it becomes, that's a problem. And anybody who's been in any professional environment where you've been using two-way radios knows that you almost have to factor in, okay, how many radios are going to lose in this operation, because for some reason people just they keep them or they don't pay attention or something happens with radios. If these get lost, it's not that big of a deal. Although at that point, once you've determined that you've lost a radio and there's any security concern at all with that situation, you probably just want to reprogram the remaining radios to a different channel. And the other thing is, because there is not particularly important programming standards on these things, it's not like somebody can get a hold of one of your radios and then have an intelligent coop on how they know you're talking. Because as soon as the radio is lost, you can simply change the channels on the rest, or keep an extra one monitoring another channel, which is another thing you can do with multiple radios. And no matter how good a multi-channel radio is, you're not going to be able to change channels faster than you can simply have two radios sitting out here on two different channels. And let's say this is one group of people, so I'm going to have one radio set with those three vehicles or those three people. This is another group of people, so I'll have this master radio set with that group of people. You can do that, okay? So what would happen is, with these two radios at my little coordination area, I know which group of people is calling me instantly by which radio rings a code, and we can pass that off on a duty roster and say, okay, we've got the yellow radio group or the green radio group or whatever's going on. If I need a master radio for me so that I can communicate with anybody else who's using FRS or GMRS radio, the Garmin RINO 120 is excellent. Although these are quite often not going to be flea market and yard sale fodder. You got to look around a little bit to find these things. But I would suggest that if anything even remotely seems daunting about the 2-meter radios, the higher end radios, something is better than nothing by a wide margin, and look into flea market fodder. And I'll be honest with you folks, this is what I actually use far more than those high-end radios. These actually get use. The others don't. These get left in the vehicles, the others don't. So that's my advice on communication, especially for preppers, survivalists. You want to get this stuff together before you screw around with high-end radios.